have a personal experience of why people don't trust the medical establishment anymore. I'm not saying I don't trust any of it. I'm just saying we should really start questioning it. So let me give you an example of what I went through. So 3 days after I had my fourth baby, I had preeclampsia. My blood pressure went through the roof. I was at risk for stroke and blood clots. So I went to the hospital. I got the whole protocol, the magnesium, the labetalol. I was there for 2 days. And when I was being discharged home, my blood pressure was fine. My labs came back fine. They wanted to put me on a blood thinner, Lovenox. And my husband at the time was the one kind of speaking up because I was very groggy. Magnesium makes you very groggy. And he said, why are you giving her a blood thinner now, but you didn't give it to her in the hospital when she had high blood pressure and was at the highest risk? And they said, oh, we just give it when they go home. It's just standard practice. And he started asking more questions, and the nurse was like, that's out of my wheelhouse. Let me get the doctor. So the doctor comes in. She's very defensive right out of the gate. And my husband said, I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing for my wife. Why are we giving her Lovenox, a blood thinner, 3 days after she had a baby? She's already bleeding. Why are we giving her Lovenox when we didn't give it to her in the hospital? And the doctor said, well, that's just what the Green Journal says. Where does that recommendation come from? And she said, well, that's what the guidelines say. And then I chimed in and I said, can you find the references in the guidelines that support that recommendation? And so she gets mad because I'm asking more questions. She leaves the room. She comes back like 2 hours later. At this point, I'm starting to feel a little better because the magnesium's worn off. She comes in and she literally throws a packet of papers. She had printed off the only study that the guideline used as a reference for that recommendation. She threw it in my lap as I was lying in the hospital bed. And she said, well, this study actually doesn't recommend it, but I still do. And she huffed out of the room. So I open up the study. I'm reading this study, and it says that if you give Lovenox to a woman who had preeclampsia after having the baby already, so postpartum preeclampsia like me, it actually increases the risk of hospitalizations and bleeds, and it does not decrease the risk of strokes or DVTs, blood clots. The only women that benefit from this are people who had C-sections, and I had not had a C-section. So for me, the guideline and the reference for the guideline didn't actually make sense. So we declined the Lovenox. I went home and I was fine. I was walking around. My blood pressure was fine. I went home on labetalol to keep my blood pressure down. But there was no reason for me to be on this therapy. And the most frustrating part was the physician, even though she saw the information in front of her, she still didn't accept it because the guideline says so. That's why she was going to do it.